Do you mind formulating it again, Catherine?
Yeah, so I was wondering why there are more women entering the human design courses. So yeah.
There are many reasons, but the main reason is that women suffer more than men. It's just very, women suffer more than men generally. They work more than men. Not only do they suffer more than men, they're more aware of their suffering than men. Men are great at denying their suffering, and dying of a heart attack or. But women, through their very biology, the menstruation cycle, they are forced by nature to be much more aware of their bodies and the limitation that their bodies impose than men. In other words, for women, no choice is not news. They know, they know, they know that they all live in a world that's not the world that they would choose. They all live in a world that's ruled by man. That's one thing. So they need more truth because they're more in touch with the dark side of truth, which is pain. Life hurts. Women give birth and they know to have children hurts from the start. Men, they go, oh, it's my son. We're set up in this way. Also the body that women are given is designed to bear pain that would, if I think of giving birth to a child, it's kind of like kill me before. So that's the main reason. Generally, women are much more aware of about the nature of things because it all depends much more on them than it does on men. So, secondly, in my particular case, see, I'm spoiled by women. Okay, so even though I am a man and I always had a rather male look, I have a very feminine mind. I'm spoiled by the mother, so I've been many times in courses where the only man in the course was me, which is weird. So I'm happier than women when there is some more men. And fortunately, the number seems to be increasing, but I don't think that they will ever come close to being even to women, not only in human design courses, but in any course having to do with trying to take responsibility for your shit and trying to find a more creative way to deal with it. Because it's women who make the world run on time. It's women who make relationships work. If it was for men, we would forget. We would forget. We forget our children, we forget our parents, we would forget our duties. Women do that less because they're biologically bound. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure. Welcome to all of you. I like that because this opening, in a way, shows how we are going to be working in the Living Your Design XXL process. I think I should start by telling you the practicalities. No, I start somewhere else. I start here, with honoring the source of all of this, the human design system. Yesterday, I completed the training of not only Living Your Design Guides, but actually Living Your Design Guide trainer. And obviously, in the feedback, I was compared to many other teachers. And of course, I'm used to receive praise for being, a special teacher. At the same time, I'm very, very humble. I mean, I am absolutely aware that, without any praise that I may receive for my work with human design, I share with this man. Without him, I would be unable to express my awareness in this way. It's not like my awareness was not there before human design. I just didn't understand how it worked. I was unable to let the jewels of my consciousness, just emerge. I was basically getting in my own way. And so, for 18 years, I was the official translator for the Spanish world with Ra. I worked very closely with him. I organized many tours and courses for him in Spain. And so, it's only that makes me a special teacher. There is no other teacher that had this privilege of having this kind of relationship with him as a professional. So, and of course, see, I learned human design from Ra when there were no types, no profiles, no different types of authority. Nobody was even clear that human design is all about correct decision making. It's like that wasn't, it had not been framed in this way. There was just the amazement of having not a horoscope like I was used to work with in astrology, okay? Not just a wheel there filled with symbols, and then more planets, which are more symbols, and me interpreting, the relationship, the potential relationship between any of those symbols and any other symbol. But because it's all symbols, without my interpretation, they don't mean anything. And I was the first one to be aware that whatever I interpreted, I could also interpret them differently. And then there was the way my client would interpret my interpretation, right? So, I always was having a sense with astrology that of not knowing why I am interpreting things in a certain way and not in another way. And I felt burdened by it because I felt responsible for what the people do with the information that they get from me. Now, when I met human design, there was this body graph. There was this body graph here. And with this body graph, you look into this body graph, and there are no symbols there. There are no symbols. Even when you have, like me, my sun is in gate 5, you don't see which planet is in gate 5. You just see that gate 5 is active. That's it. It does not matter. It's not like one planet would activate it more than another planet. And together they provide a mechanical surface that ignores any need of interpreting what is said. There is no need to interpret. Hey, Jan, maybe you can turn the microphone off, Jan.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm trying, sorry. Sorry. I don't know how.
There was just a mechanical structure that could be analyzed. And that did not mean anything good or anything bad. In other words, that whatever combination you found was a combination that was as good and as bad as any other combination. There was just a logical, clear explanation of What makes everybody the same? The body graph. Everybody operates through the same structure. Everybody carries the same genetic code, the human genetic code. And what makes everybody different, unique? Well, the unique way in which our designs are imprinted, depending on the moment in which we emerge in the world. Everything has its imprinting, everything has a design, not only humans, flowers, look at nature. Everything has a design. Because everything is a manifestation of the form principle. And the human design system is the absolute of the form, which means no interpretation is needed. The form speaks for itself, and what's best, it can be observed, measured, analyzed. There is no need to believe what human design says. See, if you're not predisposed to believe in astrology, you're not going to believe what the astrologer says. This is another story. See, first thing, when people come for a reading, I don't care if they believe. I would rather have them not believe. Not believe. Be amazed. In other words, that not believing does not mean you're not open. You're not listening. You're not taking it in. You're not trying to see from this perspective. Because it's an option. It is a possibility that there is no choice at a much deeper level than the level where you seem to have all kinds of choices. It's not that we don't have a choice. Of course we have choices, but we have choices about what does not matter. About everything that matters, oh, we don't. We don't have a choice about what matters, about what makes a difference. But you have to open yourself up to see yourself and your life from this perspective, to see if maybe, under the illusion of choices, there may be another reality from where your choices are exactly not just that, an illusion, but a distorted illusion. A distorted illusion. You see, having no choice is bad news for somebody who's frustrated and wants to do something about it. Somebody who's angry and wants to do something about it. Somebody who's bitter and wants to do something about it. But if you're satisfied, what do you need choices for? If you're okay, if you don't want to change your life, if you don't want to change yourself, what a choice is good for? In other words, it's not that you don't have choices. It's that you're not free to not choose, which means that you choose. Your choices are made compulsively. They're made out of fear. They're made out of speculation. And they're not real choices. They're choices that your mind projects out of fear, out of its desire to be ahead of things, to control things. And it gets in the way because it doesn't let you see things as they are. It doesn't let you see people as they are. It doesn't let you see yourself as you are. It does not give you a chance. And what you do not realize is that whatever you choose the good, but you're always choosing the bad that goes along with it. Because there is no way to separate the good from the bad. Everything has its good and its bad. So you see, before I learned about types, profiles, crosses, colors, tones, bases, I so had to digest the no choice thing, you know? You are unique. You have no choice. Love yourself. It's structural. It's structural. And of course, for me, there was a before and after meeting human design. My life would never be the same after I had my reading from this man. I never see myself again with the eyes I saw myself before. I never moved in the world, ignoring what I had been told after that. And this summer, it's going to be 29 years, a complete Saturn return almost. And the transformation in my relationship with myself, with being the passenger of this form that others identify as a lot, this is priceless. And it did not happen based on the expansion of the knowledge, which, yes, was enriching, was interesting. Actually, it was fascinating because as for me, it developed step by step and very, very slowly. I had time to digest each layer before I took on the next. But the most important aspect of this process was not moving deeper into the more detailed formulas. It was continuously coming back to living my design. And you know what the joke is? That the more and the deeper I learned about human design and everything it can explain about everything, one of the ways in which Ra called the human design system was the school of everything, the more it became an obvious joke to me that every time I went into crisis, which I do consistently in my life, okay, that in the moment of crisis, all this knowledge did nothing for me. Nothing. That the only thing that did something for me in those moments was one keynote and one keynote only: patience. How do you like that? You know? To be a world human design teacher, and when your not self catches hold of you, all you can do is try to be patient, because any other option than being patient is a worse one. You know, just getting angry and, well, hurting someone in the release, probably myself too, on the way, which I've done enough. So it's a grace, you know. It's a grace because in that process, really, what was transformed was my relationship to myself. In a way, there was no consistency in the relationship I had with myself, you know? I would only meet myself in the darkest moments of my wave, because the rest of the time I was too busy looking for love or holding on to love if I thought I had found it, you know? And that's what I would do until love would just burn out. It would burn the other person out, or it would burn me out. But, you know, happiness would never last very long. And it's only when love broke into pieces that, yeah, you know, there I was, licking my lonely wolf wounds, you know, once again as an abandoned, God-abandoned, solitary wolf, you know. Well, now there's a second mind that exists in me. You know, there's the mind of the non-self, because that never disappeared. But there is a new mind, a mind that developed based on the relationship I have to myself. You know? And in the sense that there was not only a transformation, there was a rebirth in a way. And it all And it all, you know, I don't make a big story out of these things. For me, it is just a change in the quality in my aura at all times, when I'm alone, which is most of the time, or when somebody is with me in the aura, which 99+% of the time is one-on-one interaction. I mean, you know, I only have group interaction when it's unavoidable, basically. You know, rarely is it something that I look for. Not that, I mean, not that I am afraid of it or anything. You could say that, you know, I've learned to just get the best out of every moment, you know, to really have learned to enjoy what's there in my aura, you know, this bottomless openness or not, depending on what is happening in the flow. You know, not looking for love, not holding on to love, just loving it, just loving it, you know, and not because it's all nice, and not because it's all pleasure, and not because old conflicts do not continue to be there. I am an emotional being, after all. I keep going up and down on my way. But hey, you know, it took me a long time, long time to master my way, to honor the downside of my life, to go through crisis with grace, not lose my spirit in it. For those of you who are new, well, at this level, everybody knows human design is based on 2 calculations. You know, many people go into this, well, choice, no choices. Guys, half of your imprinting comes from a prenatal calculation. In other words, you know, if you open yourself up to human design, you really have to understand, you know, you know, this is you looking at yourself and wondering who you are if you do not buy into your mental blah, 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 blah. Who you are if you do not give this or that for granted. If you just wait and see what your form does, when you do not steer it on automatic pilot, when you do not take for granted that you are whatever story your mind wants to tell, and you wait until you can see, watch, observe your own behavior objectively with your own eyes. Because you see, to be honest starts with being honest with oneself. What good does it do if you're honest with everybody, but you're not really honest with yourself? Most human beings do not have a conscious and consistent relationship to themselves. They are a stranger to themselves, like I used to be a stranger to, not just a stranger, the strangest stranger, you know? In the end, I would understand the conflicts of others, have more understanding for their conflicts than for my own. Because my own, I don't even know exactly where they start and where they end. You know, and why I can feel 2 opposite things towards the same person, towards the same thing in 2 different moments. I don't know why. I know it's always been like that. You know, that I can love you one moment and I can really hate you the next. Then again, I only hate you because I loved you. You know, if I didn't love you, I wouldn't hate you. I wouldn't care. That was just another level of learning that, you know, to hate is okay. It's just part of the chemistry. You know, to learn to own it, take responsibility for it, day in, day out. This is the magic of this knowledge. It's not about becoming an analyst and go and tell everybody else how interesting this is. Because if you think this is interesting, you missed the point. You got blinded by the knowledge, and you may think that knowledge is power, and it is not. It is not knowledge that transforms people. It is what you do, how you apply, the motivation in the way you use knowledge that brings about the transformation. And you see, living your design is learning the tools to see yourself, to see everything in your design in a black and white way, because that's what I see in every design. I see the potential for satisfaction if what is defined is operating correctly and running the life. That's what I see on the left. This is a generator that is designed to wait to respond. In other words, to respond to what is already there. They're not here to seek what's not there. They're not here to chase what's not there. They're here to let it come. And when it's there, open themselves up to it or not. They have the channel of openness. That, that's their spontaneous reaction to whatever comes their way. They're either open to it or not, based on their mood. So, whenever something comes and they're in the mood and they open up to it, they have a taste of something. And then, when it comes back, they meet it again, the mood is different. The same thing tastes different, feels different. So they need time, and they need to have the same thing come at them repeatedly before they can be clear that their irreversible engagement with it will not bring consequences that they will regret. See, correct decisions does not mean that there are no consequences. It means exactly that whatever the consequences are, you will not regret.
This is the harmonics. This is the all the white.
And then on the right side, what you have is everything that is white on the left, what is called the mental body. Because everything that's not part of your imprinting, you learned from those that were around you in your environment in your first 7 years of life. You learned their language. You learned their way to use language. You learned, this person learned what stresses them and how to go about stress. This is someone that learned, the language and how to use language to structure awareness. This is someone that learned how to use willpower.
It's me.
So they're very rational about stress, very rational about willpower and action, and very rational about thinking.
It's me.
Okay. So the only question here is, who runs the life? Who runs the life? What moves you every time you stand up and move? Are you moved by your definition? Are you moved by your natural determination? Or are you moved by some reasons, some mental plan, some mental agenda? Now there's many ways to go about this. I have always followed Ra's way, very simple. 9 centers, and the way the centers can become a problem when they're open, and 4 types, 4 solutions, 4 different ways to manage the openness of a center. In other words, you know, the generator and the manifester, they can be both open emotionally. Okay, so they can be both heard emotionally. Okay, but their way to avoid being hurt unnecessarily at this level is very different. The manifester informs before they do. That's how they protect themselves from not having to avoid confrontation and truth. They inform before they do. The generator, they wait to respond. You know, they don't look for the confrontation. Okay, but if they have to choose between confrontation and truth, oh, they will respond to truth. You know, they will not look for it. But if you corner them, you know, it's not the same to not say everything you think than to say a lie. It's just different. So, you know, and projectors have their own way, and reflectors have their own way. But of course, if they do not respect their natural way, well, they become distorted. And what happens is that they experience their shadow, the frustration in the generator, the anger in the manifester, the bitterness in the projector. You know, just 4 different ways of suffering. 4 different ways of suffering, being the most incredible animal that ever emerged in evolution. You know, suffering because you're intelligent, suffering because you're human and you share the world with others, and suffering is the most common thing. And with suffering, I don't just mean, you know, people bleeding out in war. By suffering, I mean, well, all layers of suffering. You know, not knowing how to appreciate being alive, not knowing how to live it to the fullest. You know, not knowing how to live a life where life does not become a burden, but, you know, a joy, something glorious. I think glory, I mean, I have the 28-6, which is a line called Place of Glory. Okay, and in my insatiability, it's a feeling. Glory, it's a feeling, you know? There is something glorious about life, about the sun coming out every day. You know? I mean, it doesn't cost. It's not, you understand, it's not mundane. It's not a mundane glory. It's not for showing. It's just something you give yourself, you know, to appreciate life at a level that is not mundane. Because if you do not have that source connection to life, where are you? If you're not in life, where are you? Your mind. So see, I don't know to which extent each of you is trapped in their mind. I don't know. But what I know is that nobody can free you. Only you can free yourself. I know. Nobody could free me. I was too smart for that. You know? So, you know, this is learning how to decondition, how to go through a long 7-year long process of deconditioning. And you see, when I was doing things Ra's way, he was a shocker. He did the living your design in 2 days. You know, first day he would shock everybody, you know, showing the misery of the 9 centers. And second day he would come up with the 4 types and say, well, here you have an alternative. Here you have an option. You're a generator, wait to respond. You're a manifester, stop hiding, inform before you act. You're a projector, wait for the invitation. Don't intrude in people's lives. Wait for them to open the door for you. You're a reflector. You need to eat separately. I mean, a projector needs to be taught one-on-one. Talking about them, their shadow side being disappointment. I think when they go to a nobody is as disappointed when they go to a human design course as reflectors, right? Because in them being a minority, they normally don't get much attention for that. Fortunately, some reflectors have started compensating for the creating specifically reflector events, which I think is great. So anyway, I still teach, I did that RAS way of the 9 centers on day 1, the 4 types on day 2, and go away, and never look back, because I never treated my clients as salesmen. I was never trying to sell people more than what they had. I was just hoping that they were happy for whatever they paid for, knowing that if they needed more, well, they knew how to find me. But then over time, I would ask myself, why so many people do the living your design, and then nothing happens? Why do they not live their design? What is it? So I was invited to do a living your design in Turkey for a large group of people coming from Russia. And I decided to do an XXL version, okay? I decided to basically include in the living your design course. I figured that if people do not go deeper into human design, into the experiment of living their design after taking the course, is because maybe it wasn't clear enough for them how to live their design and when and where it matters, that it would become an abstraction. So for me, I basically looked at myself and I asked myself, where did it make the greatest difference? What changed, in living my design compared to not living my design? And of course, the first thing that changed was my way to communicate with the outside world. That changed radically from the beginning. I was no longer indulging into the blame and shame game. I was not. I mean, I do not say that I did not fall back. Oh, I had many fallbacks. Like I said, it took me 21 years to basically stop using love to indulge myself in my misery. 3 7-year cycles. Now, this does not mean that nothing changed until then. Oh, everything changed from the beginning. There were just layers of certain themes, connected to sex and intimate relationships. Those layers, those emotional, the emotions that are released in intimacy, they're so way beyond where the rational mind can reach that you don't just heal those things with knowledge. You can only heal them experientially as you are transformed internally, if you are that lucky. So what I've done is that I added a full day in Life Day in Turkey, which is basically 4 90-minute sessions for introducing the dynamics of connectivity. In other words, what happens when 2 different designs meet? Because this is where you can, you see, this is where if you're living your design or not. In your personal relationships, of course. If you cannot, it's not about knowing yourself conceptually and then, in your interaction with others, you can like you were doing before, because it doesn't make any sense. It's in how you interact with the rest of the world that living your design or not makes all the difference. So I figured, if I include this, it will be easier for people to have a sense of themselves and living their design in their daily life. And then I added another day, another 4 90-minute sessions, introducing the mechanics of human sexuality, which is, when we have sex, we connect with our energy at a very different level, at a level that is, well, not connected to being productive, even though that's not necessarily true either. After all, the channel of reproduction, can make us very productive. But we connect to our energy in a way that our rational mind and the mask of being rational fades away, okay? And the beast is there. In other words, the purity of your energy and the flow or not is there, okay? So, if you can't be yourself in having sex in your sexual relationships, you will not be yourself anywhere. It's like if you can't be yourself with your parents, you can't be yourself with other people. So if you can't be yourself in your personal relationships, then the relationship that you have to yourself is fake, they're both fake. Your relationship with yourself is fake because your relationship to others is fake. It doesn't matter which way you want to look at it. Either they're both fake or they both point at the same thing. They both represent you when you're alone with yourself and you when you interact with others. You in alignment with yourself or you in distortion. Your mind going one way and your unconscious moving you in ways that you're not even aware. You're not aware of the forces that move you. Look at this person. They're not aware of the stubbornness driving them. They're aware, they perceive themselves to be very sensitive and stylish in their social interaction. They're not aware of being stubborn. They're not aware of always being ready to struggle with anybody. It's unconscious. That's a very different way to look at oneself. To have your unconscious, because you talk about sex. This is body consciousness. This is where it comes out in its purity. So there is an expansion on the information that is being imparted that participants have access to in this course. Okay, and the way there is something I have changed slightly, not in the spirit, not in my approach in comparison to Ra, but you can see by my design that both in my cross and in my nodes, the theme of pressure, mental pressure, is very powerfully activated. And you can also see that the same is true about the root center. We have 2 pressure centers, right? And well, in my journey with human design, I had time to look at everything from many different angles. And one of my favorite ones, after discovering it, always remained looking at everything through polarities. So I went around, playing with the centers, the gates, and the polarities, and just to see what was coming onto the surface was like, wow. For instance, you see here how, the whole pressure system in our nature, okay, it comes from 2 opposing fractions of the wheel. That's amazing. The Capricorn Aquarius from the root and the Cancer Leo, connecting both pressure centers to the throat, because you can see in these polarities, every gate that is not part of a pressure center is in the throat. So you see, this is where we start. Because for me, not the living your design, because you see, if human design is what it claims to be, you already are living your design. What else could you do? You're living your design since you're born. But because you're not aware of having a design, you're living it upside down. You're living it in distortion. To live your design with awareness, well, it starts with pressure. It starts with pressure. Because you see, the pressure, we don't think of pressure as something very sexy. But see, if there was no pressure, we wouldn't know our priorities. If there was no pressure, we would not know our priorities. Imagine we would be immortal. Well, guys, let me disappoint you. You know, if we were immortal, nobody would care for anything. Why should you care? Everything can be done next century, you know. If we were eternal, we wouldn't be afraid of death. Now, the moment, see, I have all three centers of awareness defined. I'm Mr. Fear. If it wasn't for fear, never intelligent. See, my design is a fear machine, fear driving consciousness, and consciousness calling for new fears. That's me. It all starts with pressure. Life is pressure. You know why you get born? Pressure. So this is how I started living your design. If you're not aware of what moves you, how could you be aware of the consequences of your actions? You know, you can only misjudge the consequences of your actions if you're not aware of what drives you unconsciously, unwillingly. And, well, it has a name and it has a function, but you can sum it up by it's pressure. Life is pressure. And I don't say it as something that's bad, by the way. See, I'm designed to feel good for feeling the pressure, because the day I don't feel the pressure is the day I didn't wake up. It's the day I died. You know, dead people, they don't feel any pressure. You know, they don't care. They don't feel much. They don't think. You know, pressure is life. If you're stressed, it means your life is actually there. It's life trying to remind you you're a body. You're a body. You need to have your priorities. You got your own movie. You better get clear. It's pressure for good. It's pressure for bad. It's pressure. So this is where it starts. I introduce first the centers that everybody has to deal with, no matter what type you are. It does not matter which of the four types you are, everybody has to deal with pressure. As a matter of fact, if there wasn't the pressure, what would we need a strategy for? You understand? Following strategy is not just a good advice. Following your strategy is your natural way to best handle the pressure. Don't look for problems. Let them come. Let them come. Don't be afraid of problems. Don't want to solve them before they're there. They are part of the movie. Make sure they're your problems. And if you let them come, you're more likely to distinguish your problems from someone else's than if you're looking for problems. Just because you want to solve them. You know? Everybody wants to be useful. You know what that means? Everybody wants to be the solution to somebody else's problems, which is good to make money. But how happy that can make, I don't know. So basically, you know, it starts with pressure and then it's the heart center, you know? Willpower. You can be any of the four types and you have to deal with willpower, with the ego. You have to deal with material needs on a daily basis. You have to deal with the need to nurture yourself. Well, following your strategy is your way to most naturally deal with material needs. Wait. You know, to worry about the money you don't have, it's like worrying about the food you're going to eat before you're hungry. You know, we just got used to it, to worry and not trust the body to know how to define what you need, when you need it, how you need it. So these strategies, once we did a course in Barcelona with Rai, was called Strategies for Success. It was the time when pipes had emerged, you know, and he really wanted to underline that these strategies are not just a good advice, that they, you know, they are your natural way to benefit from life, to benefit from the fact that life provides everything else. It brought you, it will bring what goes with you. Like it brings flowers and it brings everything that flowers need. You know? But we trust our minds more than we trust life. And there's a problem with that. There's a problem with that. First, you feel separate. Then, you're very likely to misjudge life. You may actually not see it, you know, just totally trapped in the mundane side of life, which is the world, not life. You know, the world is civilization, but life is a wild place. You know, there's the jungle, there's the cosmic jungle, there's the call from the jungle, and it's coming from our bodies because our bodies are still in the jungle. They're mammalian, they have mammalian needs. And then we deal with, you know, by the time we go to the throat, in other words, the other centers, I do present them as centers, but I present them in direct association with the type that is designed to be the master, the specialist of that center. So, you know, when you speak about the throat center, you know, well, all four types have to deal with the throat. But, you know, you cannot compete at throating with a manifester. You know, the manifester, energy connected to the throat. That's just a totally different way to speak. That's where impact comes from. You know, you can hear it in how my spirit dramatizes my understanding as I share it with you. You know, it's just, there is a dramatic charge that makes me capable of really repelling people, but they cannot bear listening to me or enchant them, you know? And I'm not in control of whether it's one or the other. Well, when I'm working professionally, I do try to exercise control, you know, but it's not a control that's coming out of fear. You know, I try to be in time. I try to follow, you know, the script So there is an extended way to access the knowledge with, plenty of tools to focus yourself on the areas of your life where following your strategy and authority make a complete difference, at a daily level. That the way this is established to happen is that you start with accessing video material. There is recorded video material from this course that I did in Turkey, and because I did it in Turkey, and it was for Russians, there is a Russian translator, okay? But there is, I think, like 35 videos or more. And it's only in the first two videos that you see me and the translator simultaneously. After the third video, the camera is focused on me. The voice of the translator is lowered, and at no moment is there a real difficulty in hearing me. After the third video, the audio quality is actually very good. And in order to compensate for, if there is some place where you don't get the word, there is a transcription, there is an edited transcription. It was edited, not only edited by me, in many places I have rounded it up, okay, so that it leaves absolutely no doubt about not only what I was saying, but why I was saying it. And so week after week, you would be downloading the first session on, I don't remember now how it's said, but basically 6 days before we would then meet online, like we are here today. And then I would basically answer your questions that I would prefer, I always prefer to receive in a written form before we meet in class. Mostly because when you sit down to write your question, you have thought it through, okay, and it tends to be more focused. Okay, it tends to come from a deeper place. Second, because it gives me time to read through them. So, but that does not mean that I will not attend questions live. I will always, though, give priority to the questions I receive in a written way. And the questions can not only can be as personal as you want. I would like them to be personal. In other words, the more you ask me about stuff in human design that is interesting, but it doesn't make a difference in living your design, the more you will bore me, and the more tiring it would be for me to properly impact you. But the more you ask me or you share with me whatever your difficulties are in your daily life, to embrace your strategy, to live your design, to deal correctly with the potential resistances that you may meet in the environment, the more you will get me engaged, okay? And the questions will always be answered with the design of participants on the screen, which turns this into a very transformative process. I mean, I'm a very experienced analyst, and as you can see with my fully blank open G, I really know how to put myself in someone else's shoes and someone else's design, and deeply see the helplessness at the bottom of all the vain power trips that the not self mind cannot help but being caught up in. So if you are ready to cut through your own bullshit and you need help to see where your mind is bullshitting you because it has that habit, because mind is a powerful thing when you don't have the perspective to watch your own mind and not see yourself glued to it, part of it, rather see it as an aspect of you. Okay, so this is the journey that I propose. It extends over more than 3 months. It's almost 4 months, and of course that allows for taking this information in very, very different. And you show up on a weekend, you're mind blown, okay, but then 2 days later, you have no one to turn to and ask a question, and you're receiving no advice. So I thought it was last year, I think, that I did the first one. I saw this material that I had, and I thought, what if I recycle this? I give access to people, and instead of wasting the time, repeating what I have already repeated so many other times, I give that as a pre-download access material, and then I just attend whatever questions they have. Okay, whatever they don't, their difficulties in seeing how those mechanical principles apply to each of them uniquely. Okay, and to be able to not only answer that, but to answer that mechanically, to answer that logically, basically to answer that without contradicting what you heard me say when I introduced the mechanics of, your own centers. After all, your root is the same as my root. The only thing that makes them different is the imprinting, but mechanically, they both do the same. They pressure. They process pressure. And of course, doing this week after week after week, hearing how the same mechanics apply to other people with, nuanced variations. Okay, it shows you slowly but surely how much substance there is in this body of knowledge. You will be sure at the end that human design is not just interesting. There are many interesting things in life, but you will not find many systems that allow an individual to master themselves, master their own life. No guru, no therapist. Human design is not therapy, but it can be very therapeutical, to heal your spirit, to heal the relationship with yourself, and to do that following your own map, and to know how to do that. So doing the course in this way assures me, at least, that when it's completed, if you're not living your design, you will at least know it. You'll know you're not living your design. Okay? So that you do not take this in as just an interesting package of knowledge, information, which it is, but it has the power to transform, to irreversibly transform your perception of life and yourself in life. And you do that yourself, like I said. I cannot free you from your mind. Only you can do that. All I can do is help you see how your mind creates labyrinths, secondhand labyrinths for you. Because that's really what choices are. Choices are a labyrinth. It's tying your choices to the labyrinth of mundane reality of the world. We do not have a choice about being born. We do not have a choice about dying. If you know how to look at life beyond choices, that's a perspective to have. And by the way, choices don't disappear. See, I still have choices, but you know what? I don't care. I don't have to choose. I can wait. Oh, I am free to wait. I'm free to let things happen or not. Or not. You understand? It runs on time. And sometimes it's not whether I want or not. There is no time. I'm the 3635, the darkening of the light. I am working now. I'm enchanted like a little child. I built this bench in the back of my garden, and now I'm covering with a mosaic. And it's a human design mosaic. At least that's where we started. And every night, we have to stop because the sun sets. It runs on time. It's not my choice. And it's like that with everything. There's time for it or not. There's time to have a nice moment with somebody or not. Why have a bad moment with somebody just because there is no time to have a good one? Being in the flow of changes. Oftentimes I sign my emails with a lot in the flow of changes. Because, I have some ideas about what comes next. But full guarantee that it's going to happen, I can't. I try my best to control professionally. But, just yesterday, I forgot I had a session at 11 in the morning. My dog had an accident in the morning. I had the dentist. Okay. So in the stress of all of this, I spaced it out because normally I don't teach in the morning. Well, but this Monday, I had agreed on making an exception with someone. Well, I missed it. What to do? It's nice to not have choice, to enjoy being helpless, to not need to go around like pretending to be someone who never fails. It's not. We're human. We're not ideal. We're not meant to be ideal. We're meant to be real. Real. And if you know how to be real and correct, not real in your frustration, not real in your anger, not real in your shadow, real in your nature. Wow. Wow. You're quite an exception. You're quite an exception, and everyone can feel it. Because there is a frequency to the aura of the satisfied person. Like there is a frequency to the aura of the frustrated person. And see, this is what living in the end, this is what living your design is. Are you going to live the frustrated life, or are you going to live the satisfied life? Are you going to live the life of anger? Or are you going to give peace a chance? John Lennon would love that very much. And so on and so forth for the other two types, even though energy types, non-energy types, excuse me, they have to work harder to decondition, or they have to wait until the deconditioning has deepened enough for them to experience any difference. But energy types, they can do it right away. They can do it right away. So, for those, often when it is projectors, and they come for a reading, I tell them right away that if they do not train, at least at the general training level, no matter how good my reading is, there is no way for them to assess how logical and how absolute everything is that I told them. There's no way for them to assess this objectively. They may believe me or not. They may know it's true, but they may not. They're not going to be able to logically reproduce it. And it's important that they know, that they see it with their own eyes, not that they believe what my eyes see. So they need to have more tools than just strategy and authority. And because they're focused on their interaction with the outside world, the dilemmas is who are you and who are they, that understanding basic connectivity between humans is the beginning of being able to assess the value of human design altogether. Because they're designed to see themselves and the life of their design indirectly, through what they become in interaction with those that define their energy centers and connect their energy centers to the front. Well, I think that I said everything I needed to say as to what's different in this program to how I would normally do this. I'm open. I'm open for any questions that may come from you or any, whatever it is, questions, comments, any of you that wants to pick the microphone. Oh, there's a few comments here. Let me see if there's some question there. If you don't know your birth hour, oh, well, if you don't know your birth hour, I hope you know your day. If you know your birthday, that's a start, you know. And what I would suggest to do is I would make 3 charts, one for noon, one for 2 o'clock, and one for 22 hours. And then I would try and see what those 3 charts have in common, you know, because many things can change in one day, but never everything changes in one day. So you would see what the 3 charts have in common, and then you know that this is what you can trust. This is what's real. This is what's absolute. And then from there, you watch. You watch. You try to be honest with yourself. You watch, and your own experience and feeling and perception would naturally take you to identify more naturally with one than with the other. You know, that's, after all, this is about your own authority. This is about your own criteria. Who's going to know best? You know, I know that there are people that do corrections of the birth time based on this or that. I don't trust that stuff. You know, I don't trust someone else. Human design is exactly for the opposite. It's so you don't have to trust others over you when it comes to your own things. You trust yourself, your sense of yourself. Who's going to know you better than you? Then again, how much time did you spend watching or observing yourself? Okay. But that's what human design is, you know, it's how to put the focus on you, on the stage where you are, because where you are, that's where your stage is. Your life happens where you are. There's one of my students doing birth rectification with questions about variables. Yeah, me, for instance, you know, when I started studying infrastructure, my mother always told me I was born between 2 and 2:30. Okay, so I took 2:15 because it didn't make any difference on the surface of the body graph, 2 or 2:30. But when we went into infrastructure, I realized that at 2:15, I would be a nose person. Okay, and the moment I saw that, I was like, what? Because see, if I ever had any thoughts about my sensorial ability and acuteness, the only thing ever had caught my attention was not that I was short-sighted or anything, or that I was insensitive in my skin, or bad hearing, or you know, my taste wasn't known. What I noticed was that many times where people said, you know, it smells like this or it smells like that I wouldn't smell it, you know? And I would realize that I don't smell what other people smell. I mean, this does not mean I don't smell at all, you know? I mean, if I walk by and someone just shed there, I will smell the shit, okay? But, you know, unless it is a powerful smell, I'm not going to perceive it. So I always thought, well, I have a weak smell, right? It's just, and then this thing says that I'm supposed to be smell. And my first thing was, okay, how long would it take? When would I need to be born to be the next tone, which is taste? And it was only at 2:35. And that's when I knew my mother didn't have a watch on. She wasn't looking at the watch when I was born. You know, I mean, I was born at home in the village. She was surrounded by 7 old ladies, all dressed in black. I mean, the darkening of the light. So, you know, I don't even think there was a watch in the room. So she just guessed, you know, 2:30, whatever. So it was 2:35 or 2:40. And I knew, because yes, I am a taste person at all levels. At all levels. You know, it's something I'm very sensitive about. You know, how other people react to my taste and how other people impose their taste or not, or respect my taste. I'm very sensitive to that. So, but again, I didn't trust the time. I trusted my sense. You understand? I trusted my sense. I don't see myself as a smart person. And not just because of the sense, but also the psychology that goes with the sense. You know, because a smell person, you know, has different psychological resonances than a taste person. You know, a smell person is focused on security. Taste is uncertain. You know, taste is uncertain. In other words, the fact that I like something does not mean everyone's gonna like it. It never does. You know, smell is different. Smell connects to need. Taste is fuel for understanding. So, you know, organically, they're very, very different aspects of our cognition. They are connected to our different senses. That too can be seen in human design, in how we are each imprinted. Well, I don't see anybody carrying big questions. I have 10 more minutes before I need to close because I will be doing the same presentation with the Spanish speaking audience. So if there's anything you need to know or ask, this is the time. Whether it's, yes, I hear some microphone there.
Can you hear me?
Who is that?
Leo?
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? Yes. Okay. So I actually woke up this morning thinking about taste and smell cognition. A friend of mine and I were talking about that. I'm smell cognition, high sound, but I use taste to determine like what I'm going to eat. I'm also quad left and I hate eating the first thing in the morning. And so I don't know exactly what my question is, but I'm trying to understand PHS better. I have my son in Jupiter in 55, and I grew up.
I'm very sorry, but this is not the place. This is about living your design.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know what your type is. I don't know if you're living your design or not. So this is not the place to go into this kind of thing. And I will not do that during the course. It's about living your design. It's not about this advanced level of the knowledge. Okay, is there anybody that wants to ask the question connected to living your design or not? Because see, if you're interested in expanding your intellectual human design knowledge base, then I'm not the guy for you. And certainly not at this level. You know, next year I'm going to teach the differentiation degree program. Then, you know, the time will be there to talk about PHS and blah, blah, blah. But I'm tired of people who are very knowledgeable about human design and do not live their design. This is, you know, this is what this course is for. This is, you know, I don't need to know your cognition. you know, to sense frustration or satisfaction. Just, you know, it's really not about those things. It's not. You know, all you get while you're not living your design is transference anyway. Yeah, thank you, Phil. You said you will use the relationships and sexuality because it's for you the most efficient way to see if you're living our designs or not. Can you elaborate on this? Sure. I mean, you know, generators are here to know themselves, but you're not here to know yourself like a Zen master staring at the wall. You're here to know yourself when you meet the other. You're here to know who you are when you're making love with your partner. You're here to know who you are while you walk on the street. You're here to know who you are while you're having a conversation, you know, with whoever, whether it's a casual relationship or it's someone that is always there. You know, this is about being yourself in interaction with the world. This is not about being yourself metaphysically. You know, this is about being moved by the right determination, the determination to live out the most satisfying life that you can, and to not let frustration be the leitmotif of your mind, of your life, which is what it becomes when your mind runs the show if you're a generator. Very simple surface stuff. Because this is where this knowledge makes a difference. Beyond that, nobody knows as well as I do how interesting it is. It's what I've been trying to explain to you in all this introduction. So sorry if I feel a little bit disappointed that the first question I get is about PHS and color and cognitions. Yes, it came after the time calculation, but that's, you know, that's a tool for people who, you know, after you look at the three charts, you know, when I work with someone like that in a session, that's what I do. I tell them, you know, if you're this time, then this, and that. If you're that time, then this, and that. But I don't tell them which one it is. You know, I just give them the information and I let them determine what feels true to them, because that's not something I can know. And sexuality is the same. I mean, sexuality is the same. You see, when you do the rave ABC, the circuits, you know, you realize we have this incredible machinery, you know, it's made of this perfect circuitry. And what you see there is, you know, you realize how extraordinary, you know, our ideals are, our understanding, our opinions, you know, our beliefs, how great they are. But then, you know, you meet the ego circuit and you realize that it's not ideas that move the world, that it's money that moves the world. It's money that makes the world go round, as the song already knew. And when you go deeper into the defense circuit, you realize it's not even money, it's sex. It's sex that moves the world. It's sex that fuels the emotional system with waves, with desire and attachment, which means, you know, desire and fear. You know, the moment you desire something, yeah, you know what you want. But there's also the fear of not getting it, you know, because you never know. It's just a desire. So we are designed to be moved by certain fuels. At all times, living your design is to know your way, your unique way to synthesize, to integrate those different fuels. You know, indecisiveness, desire, and need. the three basic fuels that grow out of the root center. And they fuel everything in our body graph. They fuel our awareness, they fuel the demand, and they fuel the ability to meet the demand. Spectacular, spectacular. If you are aligned with yourself on the inside. Because if you're not aligned, well, you miss the show. You're too trapped, too caught up in the dance to be able to objectively see what's happening to you, and in which way you are the greatest contributor to life happening to you in a certain way. Because that's what you're putting out.
Yeah, I don't have a question. Sorry, I know how to type now that because I'm on my phone and sitting in the car. I just wanted to say I'm really looking forward to the course. Yeah, I just wanted more to leave that comment.
I'm happy to have you on board, Catherine.
Thank you. Me too.
I'm a reflector and always wonder if a space course, etc., will be disappointing due to a focus on the other types. I would assume so. I guess, if I was a reflector and I would attend one of my courses, I could be disappointed because, they do fall short. They do fall short. Now I had a reflector in this first Living Your Design XXL that I did there, and I don't know that he was disappointed. I think that many things have changed in his life. Actually, there is a complete chapter dedicated to the reflector as well. And since the reflector is the only type that can actually experience what it could be like to be any of the other three types, okay, that knowing them is part of their deconditioning as well, sure. As a manifestor, people say we can do anything we want, but I feel the truth of initiation moving through me. No choice in what we initiate. I would love to hear how initiation moves through you so far into your experiment, especially with emotional authority. Well, this is what this course is about. This is where I mechanically demonstrate that initiating has got nothing to do with thinking first. It's not about thinking first. Initiating is oftentimes just watching yourself do the opposite of, something you thought you shouldn't do dozens of times. But that's being a manifestor. That eventually, you can really suspect your own reasons because, you have to come to grips with what drives you. And that's what's there in this course. This is what I do there. I deconstruct each of the four types in such a way that there is no confusion about why they have a different strategy. Okay, guys. Pity this is just warming up, but hey, if you want to hang out with me and you're going to be able to ask me any questions, and particularly about your own design, then I would be happy to welcome you on board of this journey. Okay, and we will have plenty of time, no less than 12 sessions. Each session is lasting 2 hours. Okay, and that's a lot of time taking in mechanical answers to existential questions. Okay, so I look forward to welcome you there and meet you there regularly. Any one of you that is ready to really meet the fundamental dilemmas of living their design or not before, getting distracted by how interesting the rest of the knowledge is. which I'm not denying, but again, if the relationship you have to the knowledge is not properly established from the beginning, then, you know, it may just become a big, big ball in your head. All right. So I thank you all for your interest in my work. And yeah, for those who are ready, I hope you find the confidence to sign in. And I look forward to take you with me out into the ocean. Nice to meet you all. I hope you enjoyed the session. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.